All right, we are live. Welcome to this month's topic on planning outreach on a budget. So there are many ways that we talk about advocacy in libraries, but for the purpose of this conversation, we're defining it around how we as librarians who are focused on tasks with the library outreach advocate for these programs, materials, as well as budgets and staff to support them. So go ahead, before we get started, we're going to go ahead and introduce ourselves. So tell us your name, the title that you have in your position, and also the institution that you come from. And I will begin. I'm Kat Silvers, and I am currently not at an institution. I actually left my position at University of North Florida, where I was the first year outreach librarian, and now I'm working on my third master's degree because apparently two is not enough. um, and I'm supposed to graduate at the end of December, and the degree is in instructional design.
I guess I'll go next. My name is Teresa. I work at the University of North Georgia, and I'm a reference services librarian, but I'm also on the marketing committee at our college. And our marketing committee is still pretty new, so we're really figuring things out. I'm not sure how much I'll be able to contribute, but I'm ready to absorb lots of knowledge from you guys.
I can go next. Oh, you go.
Okay. I'm Katie McFarland. I'm the reference librarian at Regina Library, which is Riviera University in Nashua, New Hampshire. And I'm also on our marketing and outreach committee as well. So I've been here about a year and a half now. So I've got a little experience and hopefully can share something.
So, hi everyone, I'm Eden Parks. I am at Towson University. I just started my second year as the librarian for outreach and student engagement. So lots of outreach. We do have a marketing committee, but we don't have much of a budget, and the budget we have is for all marketing initiatives. So I think the budget is always like very present on our minds. We're also a really small department. Tomorrow, Carissa Tomlinson, also from Towson, will be doing this. She's my supervisor and amazing. If any of you know Carissa, she is the best. But it's basically just her and I who are focused on outreach. So between the two of us, we have to make it happen. So very interested to see what everyone has to say today.
Okay, hi guys. I'm Damla. I'm a senior library clerk at the New School. So I'm not a librarian, but I'm doing my master's in library science. I should be done in May, so fingers crossed. I am sitting in on behalf of the Outreach and Communications Committee here at the New School. So I probably won't have that much to contribute, but I would love to absorb all your wisdom and knowledge. So thank you for allowing me to be here.
Perfect. So I have a list of questions here for us. There are 7. If we get to all of them, awesome. If we don't, that's perfectly okay. Don't feel like we have to rush through them. But let's go ahead and get started. So the first question, do you have a budget for library outreach activities? And then how does your budget impact outreach efforts at your library?
Our committee in and of itself doesn't have a budget. It's all 4 of our campuses that have a library presence kind of have their own budgets that they can spend on marketing materials and programming. So right now, like, our efforts are pretty scattershot and really focused on those local campus events. And we're trying to use the marketing committee to make it more consistent. But in terms of budget, I think our campus has like $500 that we could spend on events. I'm not sure what the other campuses are working with.
So I can talk about our budget. We actually just had a meeting for our marketing committee to outline our proposed budget, which hopefully will get approved. And this again is for everything. So we have total requested about, I think it's about $10,000 worth of stuff for the next fiscal year. We'll see, fingers crossed, if we are that lucky. But within that, I would say probably only about 500 goes directly towards outreach initiatives. The rest is all for campaigns, other things librarians are doing that aren't really things we consider outreach, like printing new signage and things like that. So while that kind of falls into it, it's not for our programming and events. That's just kind of, you have a budget for snacks, and that's where we are for that. You can get snacks. We'll always approve the budget for snacks, but beyond that is iffy.
I can go for us. I know that we do have a budget. I don't know the specifics. I just know that, we buy things and then submit it for budget requests. But I do know that, we try not to go totally overboard. So we do just try to be cognizant of it and keep costs as low as possible. I know that we have a separate account for our print and copy center, that if we're printing signage or posters, we have funds for that, versus we have a programming fund that's more like the snacks and supplies for events that we're doing.
I can talk a little bit about budget breakdown as well, I guess. I don't know specifics. I do know that we are very DIY based, in the sense that so for example, if we need stock photography for posters and stuff, we kind of just have these student workers who work in the library here run around with their cameras and do things for us as a favor. So that works out nicely for us in terms of designing posters and printing them. Sorry about that. What was I going to say? In terms of designing posters and such, we are lucky enough that we have these nice printers that we can use within the school that print on really quite expensive glossy paper, and that we can use it for free because we have access to the backend system. So there's that. But in terms of snacks and stuff, snack budget as usual, minimal snack budget to entice people to actually attend events and stuff. But yeah.
Food always makes a difference for attendance numbers.
Yeah, it does. So I'll tell you a little bit about how we handled this at my last institution. So at UNF, we actually had a formalized outreach committee, and that kind of included marketing in there. Our student outreach and marketing librarian was the chair of that committee. So when we would put together our proposals for our budget every year, we also included material costs for the glossy printer and our big poster printer as well. So all of our marketing materials came from that outreach budget, which wasn't very much. I can't remember off the top of my head how much we had or we tended to get every year, but it averaged out to about 9 cents per student on a campus of 16,000. So it wasn't a whole lot, but it was enough to get some really awesome activities together and be able to present some fun things for the students, including snacks, of course. All right. Anybody else have anything else they want to add about that question, or shall I move on to the next one?
I think we can move on.
All right. So how do you advocate for your budget? What are some of your administration's expectations for you using your budget?
I guess I can say a little bit about our experience. We have very supportive administration within the library. So library administration is very supportive of our efforts. Our dean, she's amazing. I think where we run into some issues is outside, outside of the library. So our budget has been pretty much stagnant for several years. So, and we're not getting any increases anytime soon. So overall, I think with other things and costs rising, it's kind of not that we don't get support. It's just that with what we are given from the provost, we have to then say, well, how much of this really can go towards outreach? And that usually is something that I want to say, suffers a little bit. And I think, like going back to the DIY, a lot of what we do ends up needing to be kind of DIY, or who on staff can do this book talk or something, because we can't get anyone else to come in. Faculty, of course, are usually pretty good with not expecting, payment for anything, but and then we have to partner. So we've been pretty proactive with reaching out to other departments to see if they'll fund certain events. For example, for the welcome to Towson period of time during orientation, we worked with student activities to try and get some budget to have student groups basically do some tabling for us, and we'd reimburse them to do like little carnival games. But it's kind of a struggle, because I think every department is kind of feeling stretched thin, especially departments that do programming. So we're not the only ones, I think, really trying to figure out what we can do for less, or preferably for nothing. But I think within the library, Debbie's definitely very supportive of our efforts and wants to encourage us to do more. But I think the real challenge is trying to find ways to convince the provost and the state that we need more funding. And I don't think we have the perfect answer yet.
I don't know much about the behind the scenes kind of stuff on our end, but I know that one of the ways that we kind of advocate for it is just doing as much as we can in terms of just really designing great flyers and brochures and really getting out there and having people see that we're offering all these kind of events. We get a lot of good buzz around campus, and so I think just by being out there and by people seeing what we have to offer, it kind of does advocate in a way for our funding.
I'm pretty new at UNG, so I haven't been through the budget cycle yet. So I'm not really sure either what the process is on our end. But building off what you said about partnering with other organizations, a lot of the times when we do want to get snacks, we work with SGA, because we explicitly cannot get food through our event and programming money. So if we do want to get snacks, we either go to the foundation or to SGA, and that's kind of how we do things on our end.
All right, well, I'll share a little bit. So we would advocate for our budget by showing statistics from prior events. We had a lot of events that were repeat events because they were so popular, and we always tried to find ways to kind of reinvent the program that we were doing or the event we were doing, especially because when we first started out at UNF, about a year before I even got there, so about 2013, outreach was not really formalized. There wasn't any kind of plan. It was just kind of, well, maybe we'll do this event here or this event there. Nothing was formalized. So when the outreach and marketing librarian got there, she wrote a formalized plan, started to create some new events, and we just wanted to get people in the door. There were people who didn't know that, you could talk in a library now. You could bring foods and snacks, into the library now. Like, they couldn't do that before. So it was kind of a way to just get people in the door by creating fun events. But then after we started getting people coming, then our administration started to turn their heads and say, this is fantastic, we love this, but now we want to engage the students with our resources, with our collection. So after that, every time we would plan an event, it had to be linked to the library resources or collection in some way, or service that we had. So that was kind of what their expectations have been for the budget in the last few years. And we can buy snacks with it, which is great. But you're just like the rest of you have said, try to partner with other people to try to see if maybe they can pay for the cost of the snacks, or at least split them so that it's not 100% on the library's backs.
So I'm curious, if everything had to be linked to some sort of like library collection or service, would you just maybe do like a book display and call that good, or was that enough?
We could. We actually did have a, they still do have a exhibits committee, and that committee does all of the exhibit cases in the library, and then also the government documents librarian or a staff member also does. She has a government documents display cart that she'll do different things on too. But we have done events, things like Blind Date with a Book, where it's explicitly about the collection, or our haunted open house, or our welcome, the breakfast at Tommy G's. Our library was the Thomas G. Carpenter Library. We would have students come in and they could get food, but they had to stop at stations and learn about something or do an activity to get a sticker to get checked off and once they get all the stickers, then they can go and get their food. So trying to get them engaged with our services, engaged with our resources. And when we would write our proposals for our events, as long as we could, show the administration, yes, we really are grounding this event in the context of learning and engagement with the library resources and services, then we would usually get approved to do it. Events that were completely unrelated to the library, that were just fun, were a little harder. However, we have been consistently able to get funding for finals week events, even though we're not engaging with resources and services. It's about stress management, and that's also really, really important too.
Oh, cool.
Anyone else have anything they want to add?
I think I'll just kind of echo. We're under that right now, that we were told we need to kind of veer away from so much fun stuff, which for me was sad because I'm like, oh, but that's what the students come to. Like, they're coming in, and that's how we get new students, is through events that are fun. The only one that we can really do without explicitly tying it to something that has to do with our resources is we do therapy dogs for finals and finals week, and the sort of welcome to Towson orientation. Those, it's okay, we can be fun for those, but everything else we also have to kind of tie it back to our resources. And that's, I think, been a mental challenge for me, at least, because sometimes I'm like, but the students just want something fun, and I want to do something fun too.
Well, you can still incorporate the fun with the educational part of it. So we're haunted open house. All the students get to see all the librarians and staff dressed up in costumes. That's pretty fun.
That does sound like a lot of fun.
Yeah. Great. Okay. So what challenges have you encountered in doing outreach on a limited budget? So we kind of talked a little bit about this, but do you have any other thoughts on that?
The last place I worked was very frustrating because we also didn't have a food budget. And that, like, working on a commuter campus especially, that was truly the only way you could ever get anyone in the doors if there was food involved. So we ended up, we would buy the food on our own with our own money. And so we had to generally keep it pretty cheap. Like, we had coffee mornings like every Friday that we paid for. And it really limited what we could offer the students. So we had to do a lot of creative wrangling to make it work.
I think the same for us, that we've just had to kind of think for some things, especially towards the end of the fiscal year, since I think most of our budget ends up going towards the welcome or finals week programming. We know we have to save funds for that, and the rest is just kind of hoping it works. The big challenge has been just finding ways to keep things fresh on a budget, and how to kind of recycle things we've done before, but keep them exciting for students, or update them without getting a lot of new materials for them. So that, I think, has been a challenge for us.
I think too, some things that we've had, we found challenging is because we don't have a huge budget, we have to think kind of outside the box. So we keep a lot of our stuff from the previous years. If you don't have an outreach closet, I recommend finding a space for one. Our closet was not huge, but packed with things that we could use year after year. We also got creative. We made a lot of our decorations instead of, purchasing them from, wherever. I mean, dollar store. I mean, dollar stores can be great too, but the decorations can get really expensive. So if you can find a way to reuse things from previous years or make them yourself, that's awesome. We reused items that were intended for larger library events that were funded by administration. So when we had a renovation of our library, we had a big celebration where the president of the university came, the provost, all these really high level people, and so that was funded from a larger budget from administration. And when that event was finished, we looked at it and said, well, what can the outreach budget take that, or the outreach team take that we could reuse later? So I mean, we took things like, you have the balloons with the little weights on the bottom. We took the weights because the weights are like $2 a piece, right? So next time we have balloons, we have our own weights that are in the colors of the school. So perfect. But you just have to kind of go and look at things with kind of an outside of the box eye and say, what can we reuse? All right, so shall we move on to the next question then?
Sure.
All right, have you used assessment data as part of funding or budget requests?
We've used assessment more in terms of focusing our marketing materials rather than budget requests. So like what we need to advertise, like students don't know that we have quiet study areas. So we've been trying to push those, but we haven't really, since we don't have a budget for the marketing committee, that hasn't really been a factor for us.
Yeah, I think for us, we have historically put most of our efforts in assessing instruction. So, and that's one of the things I'm tasked with doing, is trying to find ways to assess our outreach efforts. So my position has been new as of last January, so we're not there yet. I think we've tried a few things. We'll see if they're successful in the long run, but we're still, I think, trying to find ways to really show how successful things are beyond just like number counts or the surveys we do, because it's hard to show how I think some of our smaller events that might look less successful on paper have actually been more successful because there's been better discussion, or students who never use the library are now coming in and bringing their friends. And we haven't quite figured out, and I say I haven't quite figured out how to codify that into something that I can then take to our administration to say, look at how great we're doing and look at how much more we could do if we had more resources. But assessment's something I want to do more of, but still I think struggle with how to assess what I need to assess, if that makes sense.
I think Teresa makes a good point. We do a biannual survey, and just looking at, the things that people don't know, and also what types of people are responding, and just looking at different categories of who we can do our outreach to. But yeah, I don't necessarily know the behind the scenes details. I think we report our assessment data in our annual report, but to what extent that's used for budget requests, I'm not really sure.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely collect like a bunch of different statistics and we assess them, and it's it's included in that annual report as well. But it's kind of hard to like use those statistics to justify a larger budget for the outcome group. So yeah, I don't know. It's a little interesting. Also, the numbers at our actual events, they're not great thus far. I feel like out of context, they might be viewed as just kind of not as successful. But like speaking with students one-on-one, the librarians are able to make, like they are able to gauge like the level of their impact. So I think that's important, but it doesn't translate to numbers. So yeah.
We had a similar problem with like people just not showing up for programs that are like, okay, here's a set time, here's a set date, we're going to do this. So we've actually moved a lot toward like passive programming, and that's really helped boost our numbers. We have like a feedback wall where we pose a question on a whiteboard and have people do sticky note answers and, you know, that sort of thing. Once you're counting that sort of stuff that's kind of just up for a while and people can just pop in and work on it when they want to, it seems to really help.
That's a good point. I was curious, do any of you guys write proposals when you do a new event, or if you have the same event that you do year after year, do you still have to write proposals for them? And if you do you change them at all? This is my own question.
No, we don't have proposals. We just kind of set a calendar of events ourselves.
Yeah. Same.
First time events, yeah, we have to run it by the dean. So we just mock up like a timeline and the proposed budget. And actually, we do what you do too, Kat. We need to tie it back to library services in some way too to justify the event. But it's informal. It's more like we just shoot her an email like, I'm thinking of doing this. Is it cool?
So, okay, good to know. We had, just like you were saying, Teresa, we had to do a whole proposal for any new event that we did. And it had to have everything from budget to timeline, materials we wanted to use, rationale, purpose, all that kind of thing. If we were trying to advocate for more money, we would generally write another proposal, somewhat shorter, because all the other stuff is still the same. But if we're trying to justify more money, we would put statistics in there saying, you know, we did blind date with a book on year 1 and it was successful. We checked out 60 books, but we expect that we're going to check out 150 for year 2. And then when that would happen, then the following year we'd say, okay, we need to increase our budget for wrapping paper again. And then we would have to justify again. And I think you know, this year, I think they did it and they ended up checking out like 270 books or something crazy like that.
Wow.
So it's just spreading like wildfire, but you have to be able to upkeep with the materials to keep the cost or to keep the event going. So in that situation, you really do have to advocate for more materials, more money, and using statistics is the best way to show the trend, the skyrocketing trend.
One hack that we discovered with Blind Date with a Book is using recycled newspaper when we're done with the newspapers for the week. We'll wrap them up in that.
That's
a low cost hack.
That's awesome.
Yeah, we've also done calls to all library employees asking if they have any unused wrapping paper. It doesn't even have to be specifically Valentine's Day themed. Like if it's just plain red, like plain red Christmas paper, sure, we'll take that. Or any other kinds of arts and crafts activities or materials that they have if they want to come donate it. When I moved, I actually donated pretty much all of my craft materials to the library because I knew they were going to use it.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm. All right, so next question. Have you worked with campus partners, student organizations, or local businesses to fund or partially fund events, such as food, beverages, promotional items? Share your strategies for collaborations, outcomes, and etc. And was it mutually beneficial?
Yeah, we partner, I think, very frequently with student activities or new student programs on our campus. And I want to say probably one of our most successful collaborations, interdepartmental collaborations, is usually with our Center for Student Diversity. They are very well funded and very eager to partner with other departments. So we've had good success. Just, I think, staying informally connected. So serving on the same campus-wide committees for orientation and things like that has been a great way to just be present, because I think as long as people see our faces, they remember that the library's there, but it's probably not the first thought for a campus partner. So just trying to be out there as much as possible with other departments, staying connected with faculty has also been great because a lot of them will also collaborate with those departments. I want to say generally it's very mutually beneficial just because the departments we partner with get to I think move out of their zone, and right now all of the departments I mentioned are in our student union, which is being renovated shortly because it's kind of a miserable working space, so they don't really have much of a physical space for their own programs apart from the union rooms, which also are reservable by students, so you get a lot of student groups in there. So I think they're also sort of pressed for space. So we don't have like huge event space, but we do have one event room that's pretty nice. So I think just giving them the opportunity to get out of their typical space is also pretty great for them. So they've been really open to partnering. But again, it totally depends on when we approach them. So timing, I think, is our biggest, question mark. Is if we don't approach them at the right time, then their budget is already pretty much set, or they can't make the commitment to help for certain events. So it's really just, they're usually beneficial, but timing is very important with reaching out to the departments to collaborate.
I know that we've collaborated a lot with our writing center on campus. It just seems that the library and the writing center just kind of go together, and so we'll offer workshops with them and kind of look at, our angle of starting your research and then their angle of finishing your research and writing your paper. Not a lot of like budget stuff necessarily. It's usually just, kind of a workshop where you sit down together. But when you mentioned local businesses, I did remember we did book bingo last summer for the first time, and we actually got a local ice cream shop. They donated a gift certificate, so we were able to use that as one of our prizes. So that was really good. It's publicity for them, and it worked for us.
Yeah, we also partner with the Learning Center on campus. We do have a representative from there on our committee, which is pretty cool, and they are actually housed inside one of our library locations, so it makes sense to have that kind of working relationship. I'm not sure what kind of difference it makes in terms of budgeting, but it's great having that additional manpower, because we don't have that many librarians on staff, and then I'm the only like technical staff member on the committee as well, so.
I think I briefly mentioned that our programming is really siloed by campus, so unfortunately I can't really speak to what the other libraries do, but on our campus we have like the world's best student government association. They're really energetic and gung-ho. So we've been planning our events in conjunction with each other to try so we can market them together as well. Like in the first week of April, we're going to do like a planting springtime event where they're going to have a field day, and we're going to have a lecture on seed libraries, like Appalachian Seed Library. So it's great because we not only pool our resources for funds for snacks and decorations, but we're also able to kind of market our services in conjunction with each other too. And we also work with the Writing Center on our campus to do study skills workshops. So.
Awesome. So at UNF, we partnered, especially during finals week, with the Alumni Association and Campus Life, which is kind of the fun organization for all the students on campus. They're the ones that schedule like the big concerts and all that fun stuff. And initially, when we first started doing finals week events, we were paying for the snacks, the hot chocolate, the coffee ourselves. That was one of our biggest monetary, I guess, commitments that we had every semester. And when we started noticing that Campus Life was doing their own thing right outside the library, we were like, well, why don't we see if we can maybe partner and do this together? And then the Alumni Association was also really interested because they were trying to increase their engagement levels with students after graduation. So having them there too, they were bringing in their snacks, and then they would be present with us at the event handing out snacks. Same thing for Campus Life. And it really created a really great relationship because they keep coming back every semester. They want to be part of it. And then with Campus Life too, we started doing other things for them too, to kind of show them like, thanks for coming and bringing us all these snacks. We started doing displays with the exhibits committee where they would display week of welcome events in the main case. And then we would attend some of their events. So they would have events throughout the semester. We would always attend their big kickoff the beginning of every semester. And then when the freshmen would get to campus, they would usually have a big event for the freshmen, and we would go and help with that. So we wouldn't necessarily have our own formal table, but we would still be there helping them scan cards, helping meet people, and talking to them about the library. So making it reciprocal really makes it really beneficial for both of us. And then we've also done things with the Veterans Association on campus. We've done lunch and learns with them where we go to their space and do things like talk to them about the library there. We've also brought our therapy dogs to the Veterans Association so that they could have their time with dogs in their own comfortable space. So it's about talking to people, creating new partnerships. Oh yeah, we also got in touch with the game room, and they gave us like cases of sodas that they had left over from the year because they had a contract to get sodas every year. And they were like, we have too many, take them off of our hands. Why, sure, we'll do that. You never know, you just gotta talk to people. All right, so moving on. What is your best free or low-cost suggestion for other libraries to consider? So what are your free or low-cost tools that you go to? And then what are your go-to free or low-cost events or activities?
Have you guys heard of Unsplash?
No.
It's amazing because we don't have access to stock photos, but Unsplash it's a photo library where all of the photos are free to reuse without attribution. And it's been so helpful in creating marketing materials because there's some beautiful images on there. So I love Unsplash.
I think also Pixabay is another one that's like
Yeah, I've used them before, Pixabay. They're good.
Pixabay is the bomb.
Our go-to tool for like everything marketing and outreach is Canva. I don't know if you guys use that. Oh my gosh. Like we actually have a paid account because we're like, it's worth it for the stock photos and the, being able to resize everything. But I think even the free accounts, there's so much there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Canva has saved us so much time.
Yeah.
Yeah, we also, I think Canva is our big one. That's pretty much what we use for everything. Beyond that, I think for photos, we usually rely on ourselves. So we do have at our institution, our campus photographer has this platform where he hosts all of his images. So those are available for anyone with a university login to use. So we try to use a lot of Towson themed stuff as much as possible. That being said, his platform is a little like that platform they use for his photos is a little painful because the metadata is like a mess. So it's impossible to navigate. So we usually will only use that if it's like the last resort because we have a hard time navigating it. So, but yeah, Canva's our big one.
So we had a employee that works for the university, for the library actually, who has his own DSLR camera, and he has volunteered in the past to take photos at various library events, and so he kind of became our go-to photographer. So we would ask him to come to our events to take some photos, and then we would just host them all in our own, he has a Dropbox, he would host them there, or we would save them onto our stuff as well. But we would just reuse those photos from previous years. Each year we would do a postcard, just like that size. And on the front side, it would have a picture of our librarians engaging with students or of just our students. And then on the back, it would have all of our contact information. We called them our contact cards. And he would take the photos for that as well. So if you have somebody in your library who maybe has a really nice camera and likes to take pictures, or maybe you can train yourself, then you can have photos of your own spaces, of your own students that come, and of the librarians too.
I will also second that with a huge thank you to the spouses and partners of fellow librarians, because a lot of times, for example, Carissa's husband is a graphic designer, so he has done some logo work for us for like campaigns we've done. My partner also has an amazing camera and 3D print, so sometimes I will pester him. I'll be like, could you 3D print us something? And he usually is pretty willing, as long as we like give him a shout out for his awesome design skills. But I guess it's that thing, if you don't talk to people, you don't know what hidden skills or talents or hobbies they might have. So just kind of checking around and seeing if anyone is willing to use that equipment is always super helpful.
Do you guys like build a photo release into the sign-in sheet when people sign in for events? Is that how you kind of get permissions for people? Because we've been trying to figure out a better way of doing photo releases rather than shoving a sheet in people's faces.
All of our students actually, when they're admitted, have to sign one, just because Kanji, our campus photographer, he is everywhere. He likes to just peruse around the campus, and he will pop in and just start taking pictures. So they actually have signed one. We will use a special form, though, if we're doing anything that's like recording equipment or taking pictures for our social media. But if it's just like, we usually try and get like back of the heads. So we haven't done that yet, but that's something I think for a few of our events we've had. I don't know about everyone else, but we've had a few like, I don't know if we should have something else out because we're a little nervous. But so far, there haven't been any problems, because they do have to sign a general, like, I'm going to be photographed or videotaped at some point on campus, most likely. And
Gotcha.
I waive my rights to it. So
It's the same thing at UNF. As they are admitted to the university, they have to sign that as well, the photo release. Although, and most of our materials end up staying on campus, our marketing materials. But for National Library Week last year, I did an event where it was basically photographs of students saying why they love the library. So I created these like speak bubble sheets that I had laminated, and then they would write with dry erase markers on there why they love the library or why they're there today. And then we had a nice DSLR camera set up, and then we did have them do a photo release because we wanted to use those marketing materials off campus as well.
Gotcha.
We just wanted to kind of cover all of our bases there. So, but I mean, students were pretty great about it. I think we only had one or two that didn't want to be photographed, and we would just do a close up of their sign instead of their face. Other low-cost tools or events, activities, things you can think of?
When you were talking about different people that have different skills or might want to offer things, I was thinking we have one of our staff members who plays violin. She actually has like her master's in violin. So she volunteered to do some live music outside the library, and people just like rave about it. Like, she brought one of her friends, and there's also like a faculty member on campus who plays, and people are always just like, can we have more music? Like, this was great. And it's just like a really soothing, free event.
That's great. Yeah, we partnered with the art department once, because they were doing the art department. Oh, it was a combination of the art department and the music department. And we had a piano, a baby grand piano in our library on the first floor. And they played a song that was like 24 hours long or something, but we just played it from open to close, and it was artistic in that after they finished playing a sheet of music, they would throw it on the floor. So there was all this like paper on the ground. It was really cool.
That sounds awesome.
For free for us too, from partnering with the music and art department.
Yeah.
We've had a few like potluck events that have ended up being pretty successful, that we ask for registration in advance, but it's a good way to get food and snacks that are unusual, and accommodate a wider range of dietary needs and restrictions, without having to spend budget on it. So last spring we had an event that one of our student employees planned that was Cooking from the Heart, and it was tied into a countywide public read initiative that was related to food. So we just did a food event. So different people signed up to bring different like home cooked meals, and it was really great. We had, I think more success than in some of our other events, but it also wasn't on us to provide supplies. Though we did disclaimer, eat at your own risk, because we can't guarantee how any of this was prepared. And then I've also planned an edible book festival for our library in the past, and that's always, I'll get gift cards or something like that as a prize. But apart from that, you're just, the students and faculty who participate are doing it with their own supplies. And usually just for fun. So we have a class that a professor who really likes the idea and participates. But I don't know if anyone else has done potluck type of events, but for us, those have been really great and low cost, because we don't actually have to fork out any money for food, but we all get to enjoy the food. And it's kind of awesome to see what our students like come up with. It's pretty impressive.
I think students really want to be creative. I know, especially here, I don't know if you guys have like art programs, but some of our more art and music related programs were cut in recent years. And so it's like there's just really this need for like a space to be creative and like have that DIY kind of stuff. So our students have really responded well to that.
It's a really
sorry.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to kind of piggyback off of that. Our art show was a program that really grew from the first year. The first year we did it, we only opened it to faculty and staff. But when we opened it up to students, students were so excited to share their artwork. And that was essentially no cost, because we required students to, if they were going to display their work, it needed to be framed already. So we didn't have to do any of the mounting or anything for the artwork. And it was just a matter of putting it up for 2 weeks and creating a brochure that featured all the different student artists. So that was a great low-cost event, was our art show.
That's great.
Mm-hmm.
I was also going to say that putting out a table with coloring materials, it's so low cost. You just put some, crayons and colored pencils out there, and then you get all those free printed sheets that you can get so students can color in. It's also really great.
We actually made our own coloring book this year. It was really exciting.
Amazing.
We just took photos that we had at the library, and one of our awesome librarians like traced over them with Sharpie somehow and made it look amazing.
Wow.
It was so cool.
Gosh, that's awesome.
That's fantastic. Something else we did too during finals week that was low cost was we put out a call to, we kept it small at first. We put it out to just like campus organizations, but then we put it out to like all of the campus organizations the next year. But a call for people to bring their extra mugs and drop them off at the library. So if they had mugs sitting in their office, if they had them at home, bring them on in. And so we ended up with like a couple hundred mugs that we used to give out our free coffee for finals week. It was low cost. We didn't have to buy any cups. And the students loved it because they had something they could take home with them.
That is great.
Another low cost thing we did too was we did words of encouragement. All we had to do was buy a pack of index cards And then we had a jar, and then we just walked around and asked students to, a couple weeks before finals week, to just write a nice note to another student encouraging them for finals week. And then during finals week, we would walk around and just hand them out to people.
Oh, I love that.
They loved it.
That's so great.
Any other tips or tricks?
The prize that worked best for us, I guess it depends on your college's printing policy, but we realized that we could get students to really flock into our events if we offered free print money as one of the prizes. So we had a scavenger hunt where our logo was a little tiger. So we had these little tiger figurines that we hid around the stacks. And if you found a tiger, you'd get $5 of free printing. And we had students just like tearing through, like trying to find these tigers. So
yeah.
Yes.
All right, well, I suppose we'll move on to our last question. We don't have a whole lot of time left, but how does outreach on a shoestring impact the value or expectations of outreach within your organization?
I think it's been said. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Okay. I mean, what I was going to say was just at the new school, we are expected to kind of be like we have to use a particular shade of red or black or whatever, or not black, but whatever. We have to use particular colors and we have to use particular fonts, and everything has to be kind of in line with the school's branding identity or whatever. So they do have expectations of certain of professionality, I guess, but then there's very little communication on how to do that and like actual budgeting for that. So it's kind of frustrating in that regard. Yeah. You know what? Come back to me. I'm sure that I'll make that a more articulate thought later, but yeah.
No, we're the same. We have to follow the brand standards for the university, but as long as it's staying within our building or not going outside of the campus, we can kind of push that a little bit. But I think just going back to what everyone I think is echoing, it's just for us, I think it sets the expectation that you need to be creative, and you have to be very creative. And I think there's an expectation as well of really keeping a very close finger on the pulse of what's going on with the student body, because if you do that, you can tweak existing programs and events to fit the changing needs or the changing culture on campus. But that is not always the easiest thing to do because we all have other responsibilities we have to do. So I think for us, there's that sort of, well, you have a very small budget for this type of thing. So you need to be more connected with the students to make sure you're getting the most for the money.
Absolutely. And I think quality is another really big, important thing too, is if we are planning on not using very much money for these events, we want to make sure that we're still providing the students with the best quality interactions and engagement that we possibly can. And it was a really good point that you made there about paying attention to the culture of the university, seeing what is going on elsewhere, and then maybe piggybacking on that. One thing we did at UNF this last year, especially with the election and the past year since the election, was we did watch parties for the debates and election day, which was something that had been done once upon a time, but I don't know if it maybe had skipped the previous election or the 4 years prior, but I decided to do something a little bigger for that. And from that, I was approached by the political science chair who said, "This is great. We used to have a discussion group where students could come talk about politics, but it kind of fizzled out. It wasn't in a great location. Could we restart that in your library and do it here?" And so I ended up getting, we'd have monthly discussions after that on different topics, and we would bring people in from the community, such as one of the federal judges that was nearby. We had the president of the university come too. And it was just a really good way to kind of take what was already happening on campus that didn't quite work out and put it in a high profile environment where students could talk about major issues. And we split the cost with the political science department, so it was really cheap up for us. It was like maybe $40, $50 per event, cheap. And then, but it was really about serving the students with really quality conversation, and they loved it. We would get anywhere between 50 to 100 students every time.
Wow, that's great turnout.
All right, well, let's just take one moment. Does anybody have anything else they'd like to add about this topic of outreach on a budget? Any questions you might have?
I don't have any questions, but I would like to thank you all for all these awesome ideas. I have like 2 pages of notes now, so
Yeah, ditto.
It's wonderful.
Yeah.
Oh, great. I'm so glad you enjoyed it. All right, well, with that, we'll go ahead and close this session. I hope it looks like you were all able to take away some great points from today's discussion. And after the roundtable, you'll receive an email with an evaluation survey. So we hope that you'll participate in that so that we can continue to improve the experience of these discussions for future participants. And we will see you next month. We have another topic. I can tell you what that is. Oh, what is it? Okay, maybe I can't. I don't have it open in the window. You'll hear about that soon. We'll put out information about it. But thank you all for being here today.
Awesome. Thank you.
That's fabulous.
Bye, guys.
Bye.